All right, what is going on, everyone? Let's go ahead and dive into Bitcoin today. Talk about Elliott Wave, talk about the local market structure, and look at gold, silver. Let's look at NQ, ES1, and a few select altcoins as well, and oil. So let's go ahead and dive into Bitcoin here. Obviously, we have a really nice pump here from the weekly open. Definitely got a weekly drive play happening right now with our top high at 76K and our bottom around 64 or 66. So just to recap here, over the last 2 weeks, we've kind of seen this move up into up and out of value range, right? So we have value area low here, value area high, and we have kind of danced around here for a while, but it's a clear, very bullish divergence here to be looking at, right? So reclaiming the value area high, flipping it to support, having this bit of an exhaustion from sellers over the weekend here, and a move down, still holding. We didn't take out the highs here, so we're having a bit of a higher high, higher low, higher high, holding higher low market structure, not taking the lows that we've placed, and then still printing a higher low, and then having a nice liquidity pump up into this as well. And when you flip over to the order flow here, right? So when we look at order flow, let's just kind of look at what we're seeing. So over the weekend here, we had a bit of a exhaustion pattern that we saw here, and then we have a big dump here, and we have a lot of, we had a lot right here, 11 million in positive delta here at the highs, and then a sweep of just all the liquidity down here. You can see just in that 4-hour candle, right? This is 4-hour candles here on Bitcoin. You can just see the longs here piling up at the highs. And then you see massive negative delta pushing that down and filling that liquidity and taking that. But we had a nice daily right here that we were looking at, and then we had the weekly VWAP. You can see right here that price came down, retested the previous week VWAP, and then held it as support. And then over the course of New York Open, right, this is the 4-hour candle in New York Open, we had a pump up with negative delta, so shorts are definitely covering here. Then we could see that positive delta was flooding in, and then now we even have more positive delta. And we have even, you can see in here these red, if we zoom in on the ticks here, you can see a lot of shorts are still trying to fade this move. But overall, I mean, we are just absolutely bullish right now, pushing up into this price. So we have a lot of, we have the weekly POC, previous week POC, the monthly POC, previous month POC, all as support right now, right? So Bitcoin's pretty bullish at the current moment, and I would expect these highs to be taken. So let's go ahead back to the trading view. When we look at where we're at right now, I mean, we flipped 97K VWAP, and I'll explain why we were looking at that earlier. Originally I was looking at a harmonic here, right? It would have been very nice to see this harmonic come down, and the idea was settle into a short here, give it some room to breathe, and then trade it down into this confluence zone. Obviously, we're not seeing that. We're seeing a different reaction here, and that's totally fine, right? Because we've had different setups here from over the course of the month, where we've had our swing long here, we have our swing long here, and then we longed here, and then we also longed here, right? So holding long exposure here, not mad at all that my short was stopped out here. Originally DCA'd into this, I believe Friday, so I was just kind of DCAing, saw this pump up into here, and then came down, still flipped that. Personally, my thought process is, if we're going to get this harmonic, set up, it's just going to want to DCA here. For me, this is a valid short attempt here, so anyone that took this short or was looking for a short here, it's valid to be looking for something like this for a few reasons. One, you're at the value area high. You're wanting to see value accept back, or price accept back into value and do a rotation move down. And, for me, I'll always look for a short around value area highs, especially on a macro scale. Two, you have a bit of a harmonic that could play as well. And, we are on the Elliott Wave context, assuming that this is a wave forward, which at the moment is probably going to be invalidated. And we start looking at a shift in larger structure. So this would technically be a 5 if that's the case. And we're looking for a larger ABC up to 86,000, give or take. And we'll get into that in a second. But, if you took a short here, and you got stopped, I mean, that's like I did. I took a short here, and I got stopped on this pump, but that's fine because I have my exposure here, 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 and here, and I'm just gonna take the hit on the short, but at the same time have a lot more exposure on the long, so covering that as a loss on the shorts, but still having a exposure to capture up on further upside momentum. So overall, I'm not upset that I took that. It's a process that I stuck to, and it's one of those things. Like I would rather attempt a short here than and here's the thing too. If you're gonna look for short exposure here and not up here, and I'll say this too. It's totally valid that we can come up into something like this, take the highs here, and still come all the way back down. I mean, we can totally do that, right? I don't think that's the highest probability. I'll still be looking for something, in terms of an SFP pattern. So if we have a short coming in here, if we have price that comes up and does something like this, right? That's fine. I will look for some sort of bearish divergence there and look for a short setup as well, just to cover the hedge of my longs. But at the same time, let's go ahead and look at Elliott wave analysis here, because this is a key factor to a lot of my analysis. And when you look at the Elliott wave that we have, for a while, we could have said that, and we can still say it, but I do think this is the lowest probability, that we have a, let's just say, where's my wave 4 at? Let's bring these bad boys up too. And then from the, these are all scenarios. Bear with me guys here, WXY, yeah. So if we, we're saying that this is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hypothetical, right? Then this is finished. But if this is a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this is just a larger contextual 4, then we should be looking for something like this. Now, at the current moment, you can obviously see that it's probably invalid now. And the highest probability is that this is a terminal 5 here, and this is an A wave. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're looking for a larger 4th wave ABC. So you're going to have something like this, 5, 3, 5, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at right now as the highest probability. So the short or the long exposure that we have here and here and here and now here, you're going to want to be kind of holding on to that a little bit and trimming if we start to see this strength up into, back up and filling this lack of value, I should say, right? So you have the opportunity of a 3 wave, A, B, C, something like this that we should be seeing, A, B, C, slow grind, choppy grind. It's not going to be straight up, right? You're probably going to have stuff like this. But overall, you'd probably be looking at something like this, right? And what do we have here from the auction market theory? When we look at a fixed range volume profile, we've created a lot of value here now, and we have value here. We don't have any value in here. And price is likely to move up quickly through this value. So if we start to move out of this value here, right, and we come up and flip this, I am going to be looking for a move into the value area low eventually, right, for price to find its value. So for me personally, holding on to those longs and looking at 86K as the next target, as well as, you have some confluence you can stack onto it, 618 golden pocket. So from a swing perspective, these higher lows, I mean, there's no reason why we can't just continue to do this as well, right? And then come back and take this liquidity. For me personally, again, 86K is the larger target now. If this is a 5th wave, we should be looking for the 3. So it'd be something, close to like this. ABC structural pattern, WXY, however you want to label it. I do expect overall, and this is something that I really, really want you guys to understand here, especially in context to Elliott wave. We had a nice bull cycle here, right? And this is a very trending market. And from a motive sequence, impulsive structure, this is a trending market. And inside each correctional phase, right? So your wave 2s, we weren't trending here at all. And here we weren't trending, right? The difference between those is that those are correctionals, and the 1s and the 3s and the 5s are impulses, and that's trending. It's easier to trade. right now, right, so the all-time high was a wave 3 of the cycle, right? So 1, 2, 3. We're now in the wave 4, likely, right? So that's a correctional structure itself. And the fact that now, let's say we've completed this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, from an A to a B perspective, a flat, that is a corrective structure. So it's still going to be corrective. So if you didn't like this, or you didn't like this, or anything like this, you know, that's exactly what to expect, right? So being protective of your capital here and taking A+ setups only and managing your risk properly is going to be key. So here, my overall plan is holding on to long exposure that I have here, trimming along the way and just paying myself, right? And obviously looking for shorts around this zone, especially what's nice at the POCs right here, right? And, you know, overall, I would imagine, we can always come back to this, but I would imagine that, like, if we continue to absolutely just, you know, trend upwards, eventually you're going to get up here. And there's also a CME gap, like, right here, right? So you're going to fill this CME gap. You're going to hit the 618. You're going to hit this value. And likely, for the first time, probably reject. And put in that A, B, and then, you know, then you'll have created some value here so you can pull a different structure. But overall, this is the primary fixed range profile that I'll be looking at as key to gain acceptance in, because once you gain the acceptance, right, all it takes is just another quick move back up into it. So keeping long exposure here might be a really nice play for the next however long it's going to take to make this larger correctional move. So the fact that this is not only it's a correctional wave 4, but we're in now the correctional part of wave 4, which is the ABC. So this is all correctional, and it will continue to be correctional until we have, you know, this ABC. And, you know, I would still assume it's very likely that we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the 5, 3, 5. So the 5, this will be the 3, and then we have another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we can definitely easily play that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on a short basis. And that's likely when we'll come back down, sweep the 60K lows into this 50 to 40K you know, zone. And I think a lot of people are going to get tripped up on that, right? And the reason I've been holding on to my longs is because I know that there was a good possibility that this is the 5th wave, even though we were looking for the, you know, the 4 into 5 and trying to play this here. That would have been nice, right? But, you know, we have to manage how we have what's in front of us right now. And what's in front of us is still corrective. This doesn't look like impulsive to me. There's nothing about this that says impulsive moves. It's corrective, it's overlapping, right? We've been through this. It's corrective. So overall, yeah, I think locally here, the good play is letting price resolve likely through this week and then seeing where we land. You know, obviously, there's still the scenario that we come up SFP and we have that, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the 5th wave actually ends down here. There's always that scenario. So looking for some sort of swing high hedge. I mean, you definitely want to be looking for something like that, right? That scenario and then come down. But, you know, I think the highest probability now is trending higher, filling this, you know, lack of value, creating value in this area, eventually making way up to here. So longs probably are ideally right now. But that doesn't mean would I long now? No, definitely not. Would I be looking for shorts? Probably not either, because you know, again, I don't know if we're going to hit this. You know, I wouldn't short here and then play stops above here because there's a good probability we're to come up and maybe sweep or come up, dance, and come up again, right? So for Bitcoin right now, patience. If you're not in an exposure, patience. Just overall patience right now. If I wasn't in Bitcoin, if I was personally sidelined, I wouldn't be looking to take a trade. Not right now. Your biggest plays right now is, one, what value do we have? We have a big support zone right here. If we gain acceptance back into that, then you know that your bias is shorts. Since we are above this, you know, it's definitely you want to be looking, and we have a trending structure here. We're going to be looking for longs. And until then, you know, just keep a neutral bias. Let this pump resolve. And that's from a swing perspective as well, right? So let's go ahead and look at some other altcoins. So someone asked about SUI. So SUI, you know, still hasn't filled its wick from October. And we just walked through how Bitcoin could play out within the next couple months, right? And if Bitcoin is going to continue to trend up and just chop sideways, but still on a, overall macro basis, kind of trend higher up and to the right a little bit, it's going to be interesting on how to play alts. And a lot of it goes down to like what Total 3 is doing. And actually, I won't get into that today. But for example, like let's look at SUI. We have the wick here. We can actually go look at Link and say, okay, Link has filled its wick and it bounced. And since it's filled its wick here, it did make a 33% move, currently up at 22%. So SUI is one of those where I would simply, honestly, the safest bet, if you don't want to take strong risks, is to eventually wait, because it will fill this wick. At some point or another, eventually wait. Just wait and be patient for this wick to get filled. Because the chance that you have right here, and you can take the fixed range volume profile of this area, and you could probably try to, maybe play it like this, right? 618, you got the 618 back test. You already had a back test on that. So from these lows to these highs, you already had a back test, and you could flip this value here and then make way. If Bitcoin has a nice pump up, you could see SUI, obviously trending up. For me personally, I mean, like the swing high VWAP, I mean, that's a really hard, because if you start settling into longs here on SUI, right, you have too much invalidation. I mean, it depends on what your risk threshold is, but like, putting, I mean, it's still, for me personally, I wouldn't be looking to swing long on SUI right now. We could even look at something like this as well. You could wait for this value as what Bitcoin just did, right? Bitcoin rotated up to its value, held this as support, and then is likely going to continue. So if you zoom in on, let's see, Bitcoin is just pushing right now, right? If you look, I think the best play, the best chance you have from a swing long, if you get tactical with it, is I would be looking for the value area high to hold as support. Do exactly what Bitcoin did, and see if you can finesse a good swing. But your validation, for me, I always like to play the lows. It's hard to do that. So you'd want to see something like this, right? That's tough. I think, for the maximum benefit, though, I think you're going to have to, one, maximum benefit, look for the wick fill and just be very, very patient for when that happens. And let's say Bitcoin does the ABC structure there. From the ABC structure perspective, once you fill in the B wave on Bitcoin, right? So here you have the B wave on Bitcoin, and let's say SUI did run up without you. You have to be okay accepting that you didn't capture the pump on SUI if Bitcoin does this. But overall, eventually, this is a high probability that Bitcoin does put in its high, and then we do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and Bitcoin then again brings the alts down lower, and that is when I will be very bullish on alts in the market in general, because once Bitcoin has completed its 5-wave, 3-wave, however you want, 5, 3, 5, that's when you get really bullish. That's when you start looking at DCAing into swings, buying back in a spot heavy, and looking for overall huge swings back up north. That's when the bull market's back on, but that's going to be another year, right? And I don't know what the halvening, we had the halvening when. What was that, like back in 22? Was it 24? I don't know. I don't keep up with that too much. But, for SUI, going back to SUI, I think, best bet is just waiting for that wick fill whenever it happens. And I mean, Bitcoin could pump and all these could still just be very weak and not really pump with it. And then you have it come down. So like for DOT's a very weak coin. Bitcoin has had, look at Bitcoin, look at DOT against Bitcoin. again, it has this major wick down. Me personally, I am waiting for that wick fill, and under the right context, I definitely will be looking for. Definitely will be looking for that wick fill long scenario, and for me, I'd be playing some sort of, 2 to 3x, and I'd risk like 2 to 3% of my portfolio just on that 2 to 3x, and giving it a wide invalidation if it's a good setup, right? But you've had a lot of price suppression here, so you could always just get a quick one of those. But oh man, alts to me are just unattractive right now, just with how sensitive and weak alts are. I mean, here's the thing though. Okay, so this one did the wick fill, Cardano, and Cardano actually has a pretty bullish, and it did have an SFP. However, it's just still floated down there. So DOT could easily do that. Same with SUI. AVE hasn't filled its wick. I'm trying to give you other examples of ones that have filled its wick. Sol didn't really have one. CRV hasn't. XRP did. So XRP had a little bit of one. So you had a nice wick fill. SFP. And if you were, convicted enough, you'd still be in that swing. But it's hard to settle in. Like, so when you go look at SUI, it's hard to settle in. Like, you just have to to me, you just have to have conviction that, okay, if you settle into like a 2 to 3x here, it's not going to come down here, and it's just going to, it's going to keep going. And you don't have the confluence or history because you have this wick just eliminating all your confluence. And I know that like a 2 to 3x, I think you have about like 40 to 50 invalidation, and just to enter in here in DCA swing, I mean, that's not favorable even on a 2 to 3x. So for a person, I think staying away from alts and just trading Bitcoin is a better play in the short term. You just have a lot more data to work with. Yes, it's not going to give you the high 3, 4, 5x gains that you could, but at the same time, you're playing it safe and you're sticking to a process, right? So yeah, I think, overall, same for ETH, right? Like ETH could be looking at the same thing. So we have our 535. Now we're looking at the A here. Let's get rid of all this noise. Right, we've built up value here. And moved away from value, and our next major value is around this zone, right? So ETH could bring up alts, so you could be looking for that value area high reclaim on SUI and looking for the long as ETH finds value, right? Yeah, so careful on alts, bullish on BTC in the short term. Obviously, I think the highest probability again is higher up as we trend higher. Now let's go look at NQ. NQ had a bit of a dive here the last couple months, couple weeks. SFP of the downtrend anchored VWAP. We have a larger value here from the basically almost the COVID crash here, and then we have this nice value here. I was looking at the monthly here to look for a short. I haven't taken a short here. It looks like, honestly, we're going to make new highs, so it doesn't make sense for me to short here. What else do we have here? The same as like ES1 too. It looks basically the same. So you have ES1, NQ, basically the same. And then NVIDIA. NVIDIA, I'm really, really happy with how NVIDIA worked out, right? So we have a bit of a larger 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a wave 1 into a 2. So we have a wave 2 completed. Waited for the downtrend anchored view up from the lows to be hit after. I mean, this was like 153 days, give or take, right? So NVIDIA's all-time highs here, honestly, I think they're not safe. You have a bit of a wave 2 correctional, getting a wave 1 of that 3. So we should see something like this. And personally, I'd be looking for just a 618 back test of when we start to kind of put in a bit of that high there, and I'll be compounding NVIDIA on this play. If we look at silver, let's look at gold first, because the gold will explain silver. You know, gold is one of those where I didn't take the trade down here. I was waiting for this downtrend anchored VWAP, and it just didn't hit. And I haven't done too much Elliott wave, but I have been considering this as a wave 3, looking for a 4, and that could be a 4. And I've missed the long here, and I'm not in a long, right? But at the end of the day, we could always have a more complex correctional. ABCV, WXY, XZ. Wouldn't put it past gold. And I would be looking at this weekly with this profile, with this 618 golden pocket back test, and that's a short trade that I'd be just looking to take. And honestly, I think I might, you know, like a 2 to 3% short and just let that swing. Now, it really just depends on, you know, the global narrative as well. I mean, it's the same with silver as well, right? I'm looking at this as a 3, looking for a 4, and then we could still be in a 4 here. Otherwise, I'm not convict. I don't have conviction on this either, right? So this could be a WXYXZ 4, putting in the 1 to the 2, right? So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I don't like my 1, 2, 1, 2s. Not my style. So I do think that this, if this high is taken, you know, this is invalid. If we start to reject here and lose the weekly, that's a pretty valid trade setup for me. Look for a short here at the weekly, stops above those highs, trade it back down into the 4. That could be a good swing. So definitely looking out for that on silver. Oil's one of those where we were looking last week. Oh man, we were looking. Well, I think we were looking for a harmonic the week before that too. So it was like a WX. Oh man, honestly, it just wasn't that great of a harmonic. The symmetry wasn't there. I was just kind of looking for something like this, and then obviously we pumped and we had a bigger you know, rise to the upside, and then it was like, okay, we're gonna continue to come up. We'll probably take out the highs, right? But we didn't. We front ran them. And to me, that doesn't make sense too much why we do that. I mean, we swept the monthly, and this is more of a fundamental asset, right? We know what's going on geopolitically, but we can still trade this technically. And so if we look at this more on a 4-hour, well, we do have higher lows holding on structure, right? And if we continue to build and hold those higher lows, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of a flat top triangle here form and a break to the upside to the all-time highs. And if that's the case, I'd be willing to put some money on the table right here close to the downtrend anchored VWAP of a start, close to this range POC, over by the daily. Simple and nice invalidation here. Hold that and look for, again, that break to the upside. That's what I'm looking for on oil. Brought you through silver, gold, NQ. So no shorts on NQ or ES1. Long on NVIDIA. Ending this back with Bitcoin, right? You can see we are continuing to pump, have tapped the daily, but I don't think that this high is safe here. And I honestly, I would imagine that we continue to pump up to other confluence here and do one of these, right? And continue to trend back up. So there's oil there. We'll have to see here within the next couple candles how we play out around this zone. Look for a long, and you know, just have a nice invalidation here for a nice you know, 6 to 1 setup. So yeah, overall, long on Bitcoin, holding longs. Going to continue to look for longs, sell into this strength, look for shorts here if we have one of these, right? Otherwise, you know, buys, flips, moving out of value, looking for acceptance into higher value, right? So overall, you know, if the 5 is in here, we're going to have a nice move up into it. Yeah, definitely looking for that play now. I mean, we have a lot of liquidity here. And oh, you know what? Just to end on this, you know, we do have CME gaps here, right? So we filled the gap from the weekend here. We can see it right here, filled. And then we have gaps from here and here. But honestly, I don't think that these are going to get filled. I think this one's more likely to get filled than these. I mean, that's just my personal bias. But at the end of the day, you know, when we look at the value that we have here, Let's go ahead and pull this value. Yeah, let's pull from here to about here. Yeah. Yeah, so wouldn't be surprised. You know, we continue to trend higher, fill the gap. Look at the 618. 618. Right? Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful right there. You know, depending on how you draw this too, like you can include the price down here, brings the value down a little bit lower, but overall I wouldn't be surprised that we come up into this and our bigger rejection is, you know, in this zone here for a swing short. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Hope you guys enjoyed, and if you have any questions, you know where to find me. Cheers.